is like fire, burning through time, as old as forever, but past in his prime. I saw his blue spaceship materialize. He stepped out and said to me,
"Run for your life."
I don't know why I never thought to ask him for his name, but I really don't think he'd have told me the truth anyway. But that's okay. It's completely terrifying, but it's also exciting. He said I was brilliant and I could change the world. So many places I've been, there's so much more to see. We've got galaxies and planets and moons, and an awful lot of running to do.
Hi, Internet. So, I know I've been gone for a while, and I apologize for that. Sorry. But absence makes the heart grow fonder, right, guys? Right. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about Doctor Who, if you haven't already guessed. This is kind of an introduction to the show for those of you who don't watch it, and a review of the first half of Season 7 for those of you that do. So, if you plan on watching the show at any point and don't want spoilers, stop watching now, because this will not be spoiler-free. You have been warned. So, first things first. So, this year marks the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who. It began as an educational children's show on the BBC, and the primary elements of the show still remain intact to this day.
A man and his fantastic blue box. That blue box, known as the TARDIS, is a machine that travels in time and space, delivering the Doctor and his numerous companions on many, many wonderful adventures. And some not-so-wonderful ones, too. The faces have changed over the years, but in the end, Doctor Who is still about this odd, quirky man and his adventures in his big blue box. The majority of fans would probably be happy to wax poetic about the show and what it has taught them about life and the human condition. While I am certainly one of those people, I think that's a discussion for another time.
There are, of course, fans of the show who complain that it's changed far too much and that the show is no longer true to its original intent. They are, of course, entitled to their opinions, but I tire of hearing them. If you don't like the show, don't watch it. It's pretty simple. If you're only watching because you hope you'll see something different, well, okay, that's fine, but don't whine when things don't go your way. Just because the show was originally intended for children does not give the fanbase a free pass to behave like spoiled brats. Going into Season 7, there are 4 main characters that you need to know.
So the Doctor is an alien, called a Time Lord. He's supposedly the last of his kind, and at the end of Season 6, we learn that he's about 1100 years old. Time Lords have the ability to regenerate when they die, and take on a new face.
Which is how the show's been able to continue for 50 years, let's be real here.
The Doctor has regenerated 10 times, making this his 11th incarnation. The 11th Doctor enjoys eccentric headgear, bow ties, and suspenders. He prefers to settle disputes with logic and wit over violence any day, and he tends to surround himself with at least a few companions. His 2 primary companions in Part 1 of Season 7 are Amelia Pond and her husband, Rory Williams, have been the Doctor's companions throughout Season 5 and 6 as well. He first met Amelia as a young girl, but they did not start traveling together until 14 years later, due to some miscalculations by the Doctor. Amy and Rory had always been friends and get married in the Season 5 finale. Rory is known for getting killed off constantly, but the love he and Amy share is, well, adorable.
There's one more character that you should know, though she hasn't had much of a presence in Season 7 thus far.
We first meet River Song in Season 4 of Doctor Who, during his 10th incarnation. She tells the Doctor that they are very close, but he has no idea who she is. She also travels through time, but her and the Doctor travel in opposite directions.
Our diary.
Her past, my future.
She dies in that first episode, but we see her again many more times. She's good with a gun and comes in handy during Big Bang 2, when the universe almost comes to an end. During Season 6, we learn that she is in fact Amy and Rory's daughter. However, shortly after she was born, she was taken by a religious order called the Silence, and trained as a weapon to kill the Doctor. On the day she is meant to kill him, they get married instead.
Okay, so I think that's all the background you need. Let's get to the episodes. Prior to the start of Season 7, there was a short series of webisodes called Pond Life. It focused on Amy and Rory's life outside the TARDIS, when the Doctor leaves them at the end of Season 6.
For several months, we watched the Ponds going about their business, though the Doctor stops by, and even leaves someone behind by accident. In the last episode, we learned that there is some domestic trouble between Amy and Rory that will further be explored in Asylum of the Daleks. In this episode, we see Amy and Rory sign divorce papers, then promptly get zapped by Dalek-human hybrids. Daleks are one of the Doctor's recurring enemies, and they cause quite a bit of trouble for him. The Doctor receives word that he must travel to the Dalek homeworld, Skaro, where he's also zapped by a Dalek human. The threesome ends up on a Dalek ship, where they are asked to save the Daleks. They are transported to an asylum, where the craziest of all the Daleks are held captive. After making contact with a girl who calls herself Oswin Oswald, and enjoys making souffles, the Doctor manages to fight his way through crazy Daleks, save Amy and Rory's marriage, and discover that Oswin Oswald was in fact a Dalek with a somewhat human consciousness all along.
Why do they hate you?
So much. They hate you so much.
Thanks to some fancy database hacking by Oswin, the Daleks all lose their memories of the Doctor, and he escapes with his companions.
I really enjoyed watching this episode, and I didn't want to find anything to complain about. Unfortunately, there are a lot of things to complain about. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Sam, didn't you just say you were tired of people complaining about Doctor Who? Yes. But this isn't me complaining about the show as a whole. This is me complaining about specific episodic elements that should have been done better, or not done at all. I'm not just gonna sit here and tell you that the entire show would be better if David Tennant was still the Doctor. I will, of course, also tell you the things I really liked about the episode, but first... So, if you aren't an avid Doctor Who watcher, most of my gripes probably won't even make sense to you. Most of these faults have been explored in depth by individuals who take much more pleasure in exploring flaws in this show than I do. But some of these things just have to be said.
Firstly, the Daleks. This episode features several old-style Daleks from past generations of the show. There's one moment where Daleks from specific battles in the Doctor's past are mentioned, but they're all modern-looking. The older Daleks from the actual battles being referenced aren't used in this scene. This was a really powerful scene regardless, and Matt Smith shone during this moment. However, it could have been much more pleasing if they had taken advantage of the old-timey Daleks. In addition, the Doctor traveling to Skaro in the beginning of the episode made little to no sense. Daleks in a Season 3 episode revealed that their homeworld had been destroyed, but they could have just meant living conditions were bad, I guess.
Exterminate!
This divorce thing between Amy and Rory was just stupid. Of course, it taught us about some of the issues between the pair, namely that Amy can no longer have children, but it made Amy seem really unreasonable. She just assumed that Rory would no longer want to be with her because she couldn't give him kids, without discussing it with him.
I don't have a husband.
Prior to signing divorce papers.
And then we're not married.
Just like magic.
Amy has her immature moments, but this one takes the cake.
Hello?
Oswin Oswald was a major player in this episode, and while she is also one of the things I loved about Asylum of the Daleks, some things about her part in this episode were odd. As mentioned previously, she was, in truth, a Dalek the entire time.
And I am
Human!
When the Doctor hears her voice on the PA system, however...
Sorry, pressed the wrong switch.
Souffle girl?
She doesn't sound like a Dalek. She also plays classical music over the PA system. This implies that what the Doctor hears is a projection of Oswin the Dalek's thoughts, but there's no explanation given about how this could be happening.
We also know that Oswin Oswald was played by Jenna Louise Coleman, the same actress who was earlier revealed to be the Doctor's new companion. That being said, everyone was pretty confused when she appeared as a Dalek and was basically dead the whole time.
As I said, I really enjoyed watching this episode in general. I thought it was fun and action-packed, and while it didn't set up too much major long-term plot development, it assured us that the Doctor would have a few more adventures with Amy and Rory. The introduction of Oswin was a total surprise, and I still cannot believe they managed to keep it a secret until the global release. She was snarky and brilliant, and I was excited to see more of her. But then she was a Dalek.
I am arguably the most opinionated about Asylum of the Daleks, and I will move through the rest of the episodes more quickly, for the sake of all of you non-Doctor Who watchers.
No, you didn't read that title wrong. The next episode is called Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. The Doctor picks up Amy, Rory's father Brian, Queen Nefertiti, and a man named Rydell. He takes them to a ship on a collision course with the Earth, on which they find, you guessed it,
Dinosaurs!
Another man named Solomon is attempting to take the ship for his own and sell the cargo at a great profit. The Doctor stops Solomon and leaves him to die after diverting the ship, sending it to a planet more hospitable to dinosaurs.
This episode was cute. Amy and the Doctor have a nice discussion about how much she misses him and misses traveling with him, even though she knows how dangerous it can be. Brian Williams was a fantastic new character, and the dynamics between him and Rory were just hilarious. There was only really one shocking thing in this episode.
The Doctor practically sentencing Solomon to death was rather surprising. He was very upset with him for attempting to steal the dinosaurs, but instead of giving him a second chance in typical Doctor fashion, he just allowed him to die. This is a brand of rage the Doctor does not exhibit on a regular basis, but we would soon see it again in episode 3. Because no sci-fi series is complete without a touch of the Old West, I guess. This episode takes place in a small town plagued by a futuristic gunslinger. His target is the town's doctor, another alien called Kala Jex, who we later learn created the gunslinger, that now wants to take his life. The Doctor once again teams up with Amy and Rory, and initially tries to help Jex. After he learns the horrible truth, that Jex engineered the gunslinger to be a powerful killing machine, the Doctor feels betrayed. He holds a gun to Jex's head and very nearly allows the gunslinger to murder him.
Today, I honour the victims first. His, the Masters, the Daleks, all the people who died because of my mercy!
After Amy talks some sense into the Doctor, they attempt to save Jex, at least long enough to exact justice upon him. Jex escapes and self-destructs in the ship he arrived in. The gunslinger remains to protect the town, and Amy and Rory are returned home.
I was somewhat underwhelmed by this episode, though there are a few truly brilliant moments, and the bond between Amy and the Doctor is abundantly clear. On the flip side, the distance between them and the tension that's mounting is also addressed. Amy's concerned about the Doctor's new violent streak, but in the end, he remembers that
This is what happens when you travel alone for too long. Well, listen to me, Doctor. We can't be like him. We have to be better than him.
the process of picking up Amy and Rory at the beginning of every episode and dropping them at home at the end started to feel kind of tedious by this time. Since these 5 episodes were meant to end with the departure of the Pawns, I was a little ticked at them for constantly going back into the TARDIS, a decision that would almost certainly lead to their demise. Keep in mind, though, that the Doctor is not only one of their closest friends, he's also their son-in-law after his marriage to Riversong at the end of Season 6. He's part of their family, and they love him. 2 more episodes to go. I was pretty intrigued by this episode when I first saw the advertisements. They never revealed that much information to my knowledge, but we knew that this would be a look at Amy and Rory's life outside the TARDIS and their final decision between Doctor life and real life.
We have 2 lives, real life and Doctor life.
This episode, unfortunately, isn't much to write home about. Earth is overrun with some small black boxes that don't really do anything until they all start to behave in different ways. The Doctor gets involved because, well, the Earth is at stake. Of course, the boxes are actually a plot to destroy humanity and start to cause some of the people that touch them to go into cardiac arrest. After finding out where the boxes came from, the Doctor, Amy, and Rory find a pathway to an alien ship in the hospital Rory just happens to work in. They augment the signal to the boxes and save the day. In the end, Rory's father encourages Amy and Rory to continue traveling with the Doctor, and he promises to water the plants.
Honestly, I get bored when I try to rewatch this episode. The big bad isn't that big or bad. I think the real point was showing how bored Amy and Rory were with normal life, and that after being with the Doctor, they just couldn't go back to that. They wanted to have their life in the TARDIS because real life was just too dull. Which brings us to the final episode of Season 7, Part 1. That's enough.
The Doctor and the Ponds arrive in Manhattan in the modern day. While enjoying a nice quiet picnic, the Doctor reads a book to Amy. He soon discovers that the book is an account of the events of their lives. Events that have yet to happen. Rory goes out to get some coffee and finds himself in 1938, face to face with his daughter River Song. River was, in fact, the author of the Doctor's book and planted it in his jacket. The Doctor and Amy travel in the TARDIS to try to find Rory, but landing in that year proves to be rather difficult.
We soon learn that the city of Manhattan is plagued by a species called the Weeping Angels. Beings that look like stone statues only as long as you look at them. As soon as you blink, you're dead.
But Weeping Angels also feed off of time energy. They will zap you back in time and feed off the time energy that is created instead of killing you. Rory and River Song meet up with an antique collector who has a weeping angel held captive in his house. Amy and the Doctor find their way to the collector's place as well. As a form of punishment, Rory is sent into the basement where he finds some baby weeping angels who transport him to a nearby apartment complex called Winter Key. The Doctor, Amy, and River find their way there using River's book. Inside, they find Rory, and also an older Rory. Young Rory then watches himself die.
The Doctor explains that the angels are using the apartment complex as a food bank. They continually zap people back in time into the same room and feed off of the resulting time energy. It's a rather sad existence, and certainly not one I would wish on Rory.
Rory now believes he has no choice but to let himself die, and so he attempts to leave the apartment knowing that the angels will stop him before he can. Amy runs off with him, and on the roof they discover that the Statue of Liberty is a weeping angel. Amy and Rory have a sentimental moment, then jump off the building together. This creates a paradox, since Rory isn't supposed to die yet. Everyone then wakes up in a graveyard, back in present-day Manhattan, and we assume that the worst is over. Of course, it isn't, and Rory sees a gravestone with his name on it. He is promptly zapped back in time by a weeping angel. Amy decides that she would rather try to get zapped back to the same time as Rory rather than live without him. After a tearful goodbye, Amy is touched by the same angel and disappears. Her name appears on the nearby gravestone under Rory's. River tells the Doctor to check the afterword in her book. It was written by Amy. She tells the Doctor that she'll always love him.
So after you've finished crying and really think about the episode, it's just confusing. I still can't quite wrap my head around why the Doctor can never see Amy and Rory again. The Doctor says he can never go back to Manhattan to visit with them, but why couldn't the Ponds just leave Manhattan and meet up with him somewhere else? The fact that the end of the Ponds is so temporally messy makes it feel unfinished. It just doesn't feel as final as it could, or should. Come on, closure, Moffat! I really did like the episode though. I'm sad that the Ponds are gone, but I feel that their time with the Doctor has run its course. They got a second chance to live a normal life, and apparently they were happy with it. I'm very excited about the second half of this season and finally learning more about Oswin Oswald. We have, of course, seen her one other time after Asylum of the Daleks in the Christmas special. And if you haven't watched my video on that yet, I suggest you do. I hope you've enjoyed hearing me ramble about one of my favorite things for the past 20 minutes or so. And with any luck, I'll have a video up about the bells of St. John in a few days. Until then, I'm Samantha Maybe, and that ruled.
He is like fire, burning through time, as old as forever.